This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined as always by legendary former Manchester United defender Paul Parker. Paul, how are you doing this week?
I'm fine, to be perfectly honest, Wayne. I'm just a little bit worried. I woke up this morning and I suddenly thought it was November and I've slept longer than what I should have done.
Why miss out 2 months?
Yeah, well, because I just like the weather. It's just abysmal, really. I mean, I don't mean it was raining, but it just never. We're in August, and the rain was coming down. And I just thought to myself, Christ, the season's moved on. I think to myself, it hasn't started yet. But I thought to myself, no, we're in November. This weather, it's madness.
Yeah. Well, when you're in Manchester, you know what it's like, rain every day, so it could be every season. I suppose it was a little bit worse than usual over the weekend. It was pretty bad. But we went to, I took the nephew to Old Trafford. He's been outside and he's seen the statues before, but we took him into the museum for the first time and saw the pitch. I'll send you, it's not one for the podcast really, but I'll send you the video of it. When he saw the pitch for the first time, he was like, whoa. Well, just wait until you watch a game.
Yeah, what was the crowd that day?
On Saturday, so we didn't go to the game. We just went for the tour yesterday, but for the game, they had the entire south stand shut off. And so I think it was like 20,000 under capacity. But it was a good crowd nonetheless for the Everton game. We'll talk about that in a moment. So if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate that. And feel free to get your questions in as well. I'm working out how to get them asked as we go along. Sometimes get to it a little bit later than I should do, but I get it in the end. Podcast is brought to you in association with Classic Football Shirts. You can get a 10% discount with them using TLTD10 at the checkout. A little bit of housekeeping. Check out the recent show videos on this channel. There's a show on Friday, I should say, with Phil Marsh and Kane Franey. They talked about Kane for Phil's days at United, the car crash that he suffered in 2004, I think it was, and his recovery and what the club did to help him and everything like that. Really incredible story for Phil. And before I begin, today's also publication day for my book, the twins book, Raphael and Fabio, Sunshine Kids. It's out today. There's some extracts on the website where Fabio talks about the 2011 Champions League final. Rafa talks about the rivalry with Liverpool, which obviously is always heated, going back to days even before Paul played. Had a special bitterness when the clubs were when United were trying to overtake the league titles when Raphael was playing. It's funny, Paul. Talk about this from the start then, really. Not funny, but how some players have certain games that stick with them. Obviously, Fabio, with the 2011 Champions League final, he's going to think like that because it's the biggest game of his career and he's thinking about, how we lost it, how it could have gone better. Talk to Sammy McIlroy quite frequently. He always talks about the League Cup semi-final against Norwich in 1975. So they were in Division 2, but he talks about that as one of the biggest disappointments, annoyances of his career. I'm just wondering, what from your time at United, is there any defeats or setbacks that stick with you that perhaps might surprise some people? I mean, Galatasaray seems like it's an obvious choice. The 94 League Cup final, because obviously that would have been the first team to be a domestic treble. Liverpool at the end of your first season where we came close to winning the title. Is there any defeat or setback in your time at United that sort of sticks out for you that perhaps might be a surprising choice for some?
I don't think it'd be that surprising. I always the one that sticks to me really was losing at home at QPR on New Year's Day.
Yeah,
that one always sticks. Yes, one because it was a club I just left, and I think just the whole day and things we done things differently during the day leading up to the game. There was changes made. I think the boss tried to utilise the squad as he could. 14, 15 players. It's not kind of the manner in which it is today, but he's tried to do that. And what it done really was we lost a lot of strength, a lot of pace. And I think at the end of the day, if you was Queen's Park Rangers and you just suddenly saw the team sheet and you fancied your chances, and they grabbed it, and they grabbed it really, really well, to be perfectly honest. And it's still talked about, even when I was there a few weeks back. They were, when United played them and got beat at Loftus Road, when it got to that, when the scoreline was 4-1,
Yeah.
you could hear some. They started singing it. Some of them started singing it there. So and then for some reason, I just felt that everyone was looking at me. I just felt that every head had turned round and looked at me. Just
flashbacks.
It was It's just one of them ones, and it could have made. There's one that could have made a difference if we hadn't got beaten. Could we have gone on and won that last football league?
Yeah. A few people nursing a few hangovers that day as well. It was New Year's Day.
Well, there you are. That's just one of those ones. I wish I could have thought of something happier at the moment in time. I'm blaming you for that. You dragged me to it, Wayne.
Well, no, because it's not a happy thing, is it? It's like saying it's going to be one of those. It would be a setback, so it's going to be unnaturally sad. Yeah, I honestly, I would have thought you would have gone with the League Cups final in '94. Because we were so close to getting the treble, the domestic treble.
Yeah, I mean that one does come into it. Could have been something. It would have been a first as well, for anyone to do it, but not really, because I think we reaped the benefit of that, because straight after that game we played Liverpool at home. We won 1-0, if I remember right. Paul Ince scored the winning goal. Could it have been a different story if we'd have won that League Cup going into that game?
Yeah,
we didn't really. We done all the usual bits after that game, getting beat, come back miserable on the train, and then bang, we were straight into a big game, which I think made a big difference. To get it, the old adage is get it out of your system. We had to, because we was playing Liverpool at home, and to lose a League Cup final and then if we'd lost to Liverpool at home, the papers and media would have had a field day. They'd have been calling everything out. But the performance we gave as well, I mean, the scoreline in the way flattered Liverpool, because it was definitely, we should have won by more. But it's just a poor performance on the day. The grass was really long, I must say, at Wembley as well. And everything that Villa hit went in, And even someone must have hit Andre, because he went inside as well.
Yeah. We'll talk about the '94 season, the conclusion to that a little bit later, because there's some things I didn't ask you about last week. Before we get to United, the big news of the week has been a lot of transfer activity. Jack Grealish going to Man City for £100 million, a player that we've talked about before, possibly going to United. And Lionel Messi looks like I'm still not 100% convinced he's going to properly leave Barcelona, but it looks 95% certain like he will go to Paris. Let's start with Messi. I mean, like I say, it's a United show, but they're two big pieces of news, really. Messi, I don't know, it's not really a perfect analogy, but it's like when if your mum remortgaged the house because you wanted £500 pocket money instead of £5, eventually she has to sell the house and you have to move out. And at that point, you could probably afford to buy the house yourself. But you go, no, I'll just go to Paris instead. That's the way that I look at it when I see Messi crying. I'm not saying that he should invest all his money into Barcelona, but I think, well, you've been a massive reason of why they're in this massive financial hole, and now you're upset that I get the complications about extending the contract, and you shouldn't say that you should play for free. Nobody's saying that, I don't think, seriously, but I think it's a bit hypocritical considering the massive sums that he was on. I mean, I'm not like digging out players for the wages that they earn, because Barcelona chose to give him that money. But the old song and dance about how upset he was. He's earning astronomical sums compared to even what we would consider astronomical for the regular footballer. His sums are extraordinary. And don't get me wrong, one of the two best players in the world, he deserves to be paid as one of the two best players. I just think when you look at it in this kind of way, well, you kind of responsible for this mess. I'm not saying Messi's responsible, but the massive financial problem is sort of implicated in it in a small way as a player. How do you see what's going on at Barcelona? Because it's crazy, really, to think that it's ended up like this. I thought at some point they're just going to change the rules, like Spanish football has a tendency to do, but it looks very much like he's going to be off.
The thing about it, though, I don't know if the actual Spanish league can lose Messi in this way. We know that at some point he's going to have to retire, but for them to lose a player of that calibre in this manner, I don't know if the league can seriously allow that. But then as well, I look at the league and what you just said is 100% right. But you can't blame the player. People want to give him things, you're going to grab it. I look at it. Why you got to look at Barcelona and in saying could they have maybe been a bit different about it, knowing how much he loved the club? Did they have to keep doing that? And you question the league. All of a sudden now they're saying they're doing it now in this manner. You know, I don't know what the reason is behind that. Why have they suddenly now not allowing this after the years and years have gone on with all the deals, all the things that rumours we've heard about Real Madrid, the way they've gone about, the way that in certain ways they've been government funded to bring in players. You know, they still talk about now Di Stefano was a Barcelona player, but the government come in and stepped in and took him to Real Madrid. All those little things you hear about, and it is underhand, and somewhere along that I'm like you, I don't believe it's going to happen. I just don't see someone who's been involved with a club for so long, 20 odd years, 21 years, is suddenly just going to, he's done what he's done, he's going to go and play maybe for PSG. I don't see how you can leave Barcelona and go and do that and go to PSG, in my opinion. If he's going to leave Barcelona, I would say, yep, okay. I would find it difficult to relate to him not being a Barca player. But I still can't believe that Messi still would not want to give himself a bigger challenge, and that is to go and play in English football rather than go and play for PSG.
Yeah,
that's the bit for me. And for me, if he was going to go to France, and I always say, if you're going to give yourself a challenge in France, go and play for Marseille. That's the team. That's the team to go and play for, with the hardcore fans. They're supported all over the country. You know, their fan base, it steps outside of France. PSG doesn't really, to be perfectly honest. That's the challenge. PSG is money. So
it's a strange one, that, because I agree with that sort of philosophy of football. His career is short, and I don't blame, like you said, Barcelona are going to offer him the money. He's going to take it, and maybe that's the case with Paris. Paris are going to offer him the money, and he's going to take it. But I do think, or maybe even thinks that Paris, with him and Neymar and Mbappe, have got the best chance of winning the Champions League, if that's the offer that's on the table for him, because it looks like City aren't, because they've given the number 10 shirt and thrown all that money at Grealish, and they're still under this sort of FFP cloud. Talk to me what you think about Grealish, because that's something that does implicate United a little bit more. I think there's no doubt in his talent, but I don't think he's any better than Bernardo Silva. I don't think he's much better than Sterling. He's certainly not better than De Bruyne. And there's a part of me, and this might be famous last words and come back to get me, but there's a little part of me that thinks this could well be like remember when Chelsea signed Shevchenko and they already had Drogba? And I think, do you really need him? Could that money have gone elsewhere? Not that I'm complaining, because that's a problem for City, but obviously a great player. Not exactly you call a Pep player. Pep might improve him, but a strange one, and it seems to happen so fast. Paul, what do you make of that transfer?
Yeah, I'd be interested where he's going to play him, first and foremost. They're talking about Bernardo Silva going. I can relate to that, because he didn't get a regular run. Mahrez was the more prominent player in that position, but Mahrez, does score goals, does make goals. He can do the unexpected. Jack Grealish, I look at him, I think to myself, right, as you said, he's not really a Pep player. What's Pep going to do? Is Pep going to fine-tune the ability he's got at this moment in time? Say he wants him to get in areas in the final third and run at players. But Pep will maybe say to him, because he's worked with Messi, he'll say, I think he's got to be saying to him, when someone touches you, stay on your feet, have an end product. We're not just about getting free kicks all the time. We want you to go and assist and score goals as well. So you can do that by staying on your feet. He has to change that way, in my opinion. Pep is going to want him for that. He's not, Man City ain't a team that suddenly get a player just to get free kicks to lump big balls in the box.
Yeah.
That's not what they're about. And even when I think about Messi was the only real dribbler that they had, but everyone knows that Messi would take 2 kicks to the knee, he'll take a knife in the belly, but he'll still try and go on and score a goal. So I know that he'll have to change his ethos, I think, a little bit, Jack Grealish, to become a Pep Guardiola player. So it'll be an interesting one. It's one that I think everyone will be talking about. How is Pep going to fit him in? Why did Pep go and sign him when he's already got a player in Mahrez in that position already? Or is he looking at the other side? And if you look at the other side and you're talking about maybe Foden and Sterling.
Yeah.
But then I read today, and everyone's talking about Sterling being used as a make-weight to go to Spurs. Seems like now Sterling's going to talk about a new contract. So where is he going to play? They haven't got a centre forward at the moment in time. Sterling is not a centre forward. Sterling's just about doing a job on the left-hand side, being predominantly right-footed.
Yeah.
I really don't know, but Pep Guardiola's proved himself. He knows how to improve players better than any other manager in the Premier League. So at this moment in time, I think everyone's looking for Jack Grealish to maybe have a little bit of a wobbly moment, because he's going to have his game altered, his mindset altered in the way he plays to the way that Pep wants it to play for his team. So Jack Grealish might take a bit of time to, he's a work in progress, as they say, and he just might improve as a better player by working under Pep.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I just think, is it going to make £100 million a difference to this City team, who were already good? And I just look at it and I think, as a United fan, as one of the teams that we want to close the gap, I'm not going to say I'm relieved about the signing, but if they went, obviously if they sign Kane, I think, they're going to get a few goals. But even then, Kane over Aguero, 5 or 10 goals difference. It's not really. Do you see where I'm coming from with that? It's not. It's not the statement signing that the money would dictate that it is. Do you see? If you understand what I'm saying, like, I look at Chelsea buying Lukaku and I think, I wasn't impressed with Lukaku, but maybe I can sort of see what he would bring to that Chelsea side. But with Kane and with Grealish, I look at the players that City already had, and I just think, well, it is a little bit like City. Well, I'm pretty sure it was Guardiola who replaced Eto'o with Ibrahimovic, and Eto'o was much better for the Barcelona style, and Ibrahimovic just didn't suit it at all. I'm not saying that Grealish or Kane would be like that, because I think they fit the style of what City do a lot more than what Ibrahimovic did. But I still don't look at it. I think what I'm trying to say is that there's not $250 million improvement there that makes me worried that United are going to be left in the dust, because I look at what United have done and I think, well, they've still only got to play 18 other teams apart from us. They can only collect the same amount of points. They've been hitting record numbers. The maximum amount of points you can get is 114. You know where I'm going with this. It's like there's only so much you can do. They're obviously going to drop points at some point unless they're the best ever team and win everything. But I don't think it changes that much for United. Honestly, I really don't. And I might be someone who's been a little bit optimistic with that, but I just look at it and I think, well, it's never about what City do. United's problem is accumulating as many points as they need to, like Liverpool did. Like I've been saying this for the last couple of years, and it's quite unpopular. Kind of follow what Liverpool have done, because that's the best way to do it. Don't worry about what, like the Chelsea team of 15 years ago, you don't really worry about what they're doing. You presume they're going to get 90 points or more, and then you build on a team to do that yourself, and then see where it ends up. Because that's all you can do, really. You can't match what City are doing. You can't go out and spend. We obviously couldn't do that, what they're doing. I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm just saying it's different. It's horses for courses. And am I being too optimistic with that? Are you looking at the City team and thinking, well, with Grealish and with Kane, there's no point turning up this season?
I'll get that, yeah. But Harry Kane is not an Aguero. Aguero suited City in the manner which City played. The goals he scored Kane doesn't score those goals.
Yeah.
Not the kind of goals that Kane would go and score on a regular basis like Aguero did. So for Kane to play, and the way Kane has been playing of late, they'll end up with just a team of midfield players because Kane does not want to go and play on the back line, on the front foot, looking to get in behind over the shoulder of people. He hasn't gone that way. So for them to go out and spend 100 million plus, by the way, because there's no way that Daniel Levy's going to say, oh, 100 million's fine, because he's going to look at Grealish and say, you signed Grealish from Aston Villa for 100 million. He's not a regular goal scorer. Tell me how you can relate to him in costings to Harry Kane, who keeps, he was finishing top or second in scoring goals for God knows how many seasons. Scored, he's almost going to maybe become England's record goal scorer. It's going to cost you 140 minimum.
Yeah, so especially the Kane of the last 2 or 3 years who dropped so deep.
Yeah, he's dropping far too deep. He's getting a lot of injuries as well. You have to. They're not. You can't. They're not going to spend that money, City. I cannot see them doing it. It'd be more beneficial for them to go for Messi and bring Messi in. Look what PSG are paying. Plus, he knows Pep. He might drop a little bit to go and play for him. His last hurrah with someone who he respects. You think if you sign him as a Man City player, what you can get in return back on his wages because of the amount of shirts and all that go with him would be absolutely incredible. And even for City, they might even sell out properly then at home rather than putting tickets up on general sale already.
I don't know. Pigs might fly. I don't know with that one. I always the Messi and Guardiola thing. You would presume that they know each other inside out, so that dialogue's been happening. So whatever, maybe it's a sort of cautiousness from City, knowing that they're being investigated. Well, investigated for want of a better word. People are looking at what they're doing and they're very sort of skeptical about it. So maybe adding Messi on top of that would be just too much for even them to sort of deal with. Whereas Paris, for whatever reason, I think that they can add him on top of Neymar and Mbappe, who when they arrived, cost 400 million between them, which is just, what can you do? Maybe they'll win the French league this time. So yeah, let's talk about United then. Being 20 minutes in, we haven't really done that. United played Everton last pre-season game. I know you were out and about on Saturday, so you might not have seen much of it, but Greenwood getting in the goals, which is always good. He needs to keep that confidence going, especially since he's come back in. Maguire with a thumping header, which we haven't seen enough of, and hopefully we might see a little bit more life. Varane's taking up other sort of spaces in the box. And Fernandez's free kick was sensational. I think Dalot's header was pretty good as well. So all in all, a good day's work. I think that the major thing for me, not so much the things that we know Fernandez really needed a rest, so hopefully he'll benefit from that. I think for me, it's having Greenwood in a confident vein of form, really, because he's going to be used. We don't quite know where Ollie's going to put him in that front line yet. So it's really important that Greenwood, you said he looked lively at QPR and people were talking about him, the buzz was about him, and to get on the score sheet, that's, I think, probably taking into account we haven't seen the new signings yet, apart from Tom Heaton, we already knew about. The major plus from pre-season is going to be Greenwood, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But for me, I'm waiting to see, which I think is something that should be sorted out first and foremost, and actually said, quoted, make it factual, is who's going to be number one.
Yeah.
That can't be left open, Wayne, because that's just going to cause too much stories, too many opinions. You need to put that to bed. And then everyone else then will wait and see the repercussions of it. What happens then to the goalkeepers? But he needs to do that. He can't just play and just get ifs and buts, and for people to make their own mind up and then start making up their own agenda. In that sense, you just want Ollie to be strong and come out and say that, as any good manager would do, to be in that position. It doesn't matter if you've spoken to him privately. If he has spoken to them privately and already told them, I think he has to pull it out there to everyone and let everyone know that. So he's not going to be hit with questions all the time, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake.
Difficult one for him in that I think Henderson's still unwell, so De Gea's going to start on Saturday. Do you think that muddies the waters somewhat? Because, I mean, let's say that he's picked Henderson. Having that conversation 2 or 3 games into the season is going to be quite difficult. You know, if De Gea starts well and doesn't make any mistakes, or even if he does make a mistake, do you know what I mean? Because Ollie's such a patient guy. We know that. We've seen that with like Lindelof. No matter what he did last season, he was Teflon. He was back in the side the next week. And he's kind of like that. Not with the goalkeepers, but if he has made a decision on Henderson to be number one, do you think that this is a sort of muddy in the waters kind of thing again? Because he's going to be in that situation where De Gea could do well, he could do badly, and I don't know. I'm kind of favouring De Gea, but I'm thinking if most people, as I presume, think it's time for Henderson, and I can see why. I'm not saying it's an easy decision. It's going to make it a sort of a bit of a mess. He's by and large handled it quite well so far, but because of Henderson being unwell, it complicates it a little bit.
It does in certain ways, but if he has made Henderson his number one and he gets himself back, then he's going to have to bring him straight back in. He can't say, "Oh, De Gea's doing well. I don't want to change it," because he's not maybe going to stand for that, and it might cause a little bit of discontent, you know. And it's about loyalties really, and standing by what you say. And a lot of the players will mostly all know, because it's all. If he has said that, this is all ifs and buts at the moment. But players talk, so then straight away, the manager hasn't stood by what he said. And straight away, every player then would be worried, is he telling me the truth? So you can't have that. Not in today's football, you can't have that. Because the players are that, in certain ways, quite mentally fragile. That will go against him as a manager, especially if they hit a little bit of a patch. It could fall apart. In that sense, that's what happens. So he needs really, if he said his number, then he's going to have to stick by it in that way. It doesn't matter how well David does, he's going to have to stick by what he said, because the other players will know, and he can't afford for them to see him as not somebody who stands by his word, regardless of form.
Yeah. No, yeah, and to be fair, if there's one thing we've definitely been consistent on, even against our own opinion, is that Ollie's man management and decisions in this kind of vein have usually been spot on. No, I'm not saying that everyone's always right, but for the harmony of the squad and the consistency of the squad, he's generally got it right. So I can back him to make the right decision, whether or not it's De Gea or Henderson. Do you know what I mean? If he makes a decision and, like you said, shows that conviction, it can only be a good thing, and hopefully it'll be the right choice as well. Leeds then are going to be the opponents on opening day. They've had a bit of a miserable pre-season, but I don't think they'll be that bothered about that. 6 games, I think they've had and lost 3 of them. They only won the first one against Guiseley, so it's been a pretty miserable pre-season. But they haven't had really any big changes from last season. A couple of players that I don't really know much about have been signed for them. They won't be looking at pre-season. They'll be looking at the way that they finished the previous season, which was like 1 defeat in the last 10 games or something, to finish 9th, really strong into the season. It's a complicated thing. It's the second season back in the top flight. A lot of teams are going to be more preparing for their style of play, but they're going to have to be a little bit more cautious than they were at Old Trafford, you would think, especially with the fans there. They're not going to want to see them ship a lot of goals now. They're watching them play at Old Trafford. But then again, you say that, and Bielsa's fairly rigid with what he does. He sticks to what he's going to do. They might well be open and be happy to sort of see United play in front of them again. How do you see this one going? Do you know what? Considering everything, it's a pretty good game to open the season, isn't it?
Oh, it's a really good game for United to start playing. The fans is going to be on a high anyway, because they're going to be back in their numbers, and to play Leeds as well. There's no worries about it being a good atmosphere. It's a big game for Leeds. It's a bigger game for Leeds than when it is United. Leeds treat this as their big game. This is getting the first thing they wanted to talk about getting back in the Premier League was playing Manchester United. And It's all about playing Manchester United at Ellen Road. That's the one. That is the fireworks game, that one. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Something I never thought I'd witness. I never knew about the rivalry when I first arrived 30 years ago, was when I signed for United. So this fixture just really caught me, shocked me, the hate between them. So, but the United fans, of course, know about it, and this game is still seen as a big one. First game of the season, it's even bigger. United are not, I don't think they're going to be as fortunate to catch them as cold as they did last time. As much as what they'd done United in that game, Leeds responded reasonably well. They didn't panic, didn't change their way. As you said, the manager's stubborn. He knows what he wants from his players. And they had a couple of moments in that second half to get themselves back into the game because they played their way, and United really didn't really get it right in the second half in certain ways. But they still, at the end of the day, the game was won the moment they got that 2-goal advantage.
Yeah.
They haven't made a lot of changes. We know that they play kind of wide open. They've made a change at left back. Now bringing in the lad from Barcelona. He's coming now.
Yeah,
but he's going to be
Junior.
but he's going to be mainly a little bit more attack orientated. As what I saw him at Barca, he's not the most sturdiest of defenders, but he's a good footballer. So it's just one of them ones. Leeds, I mean, I enjoyed watching Leeds play. I have to say that. I saw them play a few times down here in London, and they were good to watch, really good to watch what they try and do, and the effort they put into it, and the manager demands that. And there's no backbiting or anything with the players. They do it. They seem like they enjoy doing it as well. So this is a good game for United to be going into. One that, if they can get the right kind of performance with a win as well, will get people thinking that this could be their season. Really, just with the signings, and we don't know if there's going to be any more yet, but it's there at this moment in time. This is going to be, for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing another open season, but in the right way, because there's going to be fans in the stadium.
Yeah. You mentioned then the Varane and Sancho. Varane still not rubber stamped, but you would presume that even while we're on here, it could be announced, because they let Tuanzebe go to Villa yesterday on loan. So it looks pretty much like, they're going to sign. That's going to be announced any time. And there's been problems with the visa and everything like that because of Brexit, and sort of, which is a bit strange considering, they're a football club, and you would have thought that they've got these all ironed out before balls being kicked in the season. But they could be in the team for Saturday, and there's been some talk that they'll be on the bench and everything like that. But what do you think? You mentioned the lad from Barcelona playing at left back. He's going to be making his debut. Let's presume that he does make his debut there. Is it not ideal to sort of throw Sancho in from the start, to throw Varane in from the start? Because what you're basically doing is you're saying, run on momentum. You're in front of the fans for the first time. Everyone's on the sort of same thing. You can have the adrenaline there of playing in front of the car. You're not going to be asked to play in a couple of days again. You're going to have a few days off. So it's an ideal occasion to sort of go out there, flex your muscles a little bit, and sort of run on that adrenaline in front of the fans for the first time, rather than bringing them in from the bench.
Yeah, I'm sure that the players, are going to want to play especially at Old Trafford, and in themselves, they would know in themselves that Leeds United, it's a big game. Most of you wouldn't know about the rivalry. Maybe Sancho might do to a point, but it's still Leeds, and it's still a big game. I don't know so much about Varane because of the games that he played during the Euros or whatever, but I look at Sancho and he played no minutes. He didn't play anything, didn't do anything. He warmed up a lot of times, but I don't see there's any reason why he cannot start the game. I'd find it baffles me what's going on now. It seems like where you really needed to be fit because you were playing to pay a mortgage. That you'd go, you'd run through fires just on hot coals just to make sure you played in every game. Where now they get so much money, but they play less football, because they get tired or they're worried about this and worried about that.
Sancho could be perfect for him, shouldn't it? Really, because he's had a summer staying fit.
Yeah. He should be he should be there ready to go and buzzing to go, and the opportunity to run out in a Manchester United shirt in a game like this where he knows that everyone is going to be interested in it and wants to see this game. And I turned down the game to make sure that I could do this game.
Yeah.
because I knew that it was, it's going to be something to talk about. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing this game on the first game of the season. So I'm sure Sancho's going to want to play in it for his own ego and what happens. Everything that goes with this game. It's a game where you want to get in, make your mark, and it's something that people don't forget if you go and do it in the game against Leeds.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier about the fans being back, and yeah, absolutely. Is the biggest thing of the game, actually. The fans are going to be back in the stadium for it. And I do want to give a little shout out to some of the fans who've done a lot of great work behind the scenes. Obviously, the end of season protests last time round instigated a lot of conversations between the club and fans. There are already plans in there to put the rail seating in, for safe standing. So that's going to be trialled, which is going to be great to see. Hopefully that works out well. And also some fans lobbying on the the fans forums and everything like that. There's cheaper beer in the ground now, which is, I know it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is a big thing for the fans, and a lot of people working to do that, knowing that they're going to get criticism for being in dialogue with the owners. But that's the point of what we're trying to, that's the point of this. If you can't convince them to sell, get dialogue for a better experience for the fans. And that's what they're doing. And hopefully, maybe an extra beer. Not that you need it for a game against Leeds, but an extra beer before kickoff. Just thank God it's a 12:45 and not a 5 o'clock one, to give them more time to get riled up for it. Yeah, looking forward to that. It's a great game to open the season. We were talking, like I said at the start of the podcast, we were talking about 93, 94 last week, and there were some things that I didn't talk about, which I want to pick Paul's brains on. The FA Cup run. We talked about the number of red cards, playing at Blackburn without Cantona, losing 2-0. We were 1-0 down and you came off for Chucky in that. I presume that you're already struggling with the injury at that point, because we were chasing the result, and Fergie looked at that and obviously thought, bring Chucky on, try and get the goal. As soon as he came on, we conceded a second. But then you missed the game on Monday. And you've always talked about this one, but on the audio pod, so let's get the story for this one, because we had 2 games against Oldham. We had the Easter Monday game, and then we had the semi-final on the Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember which one. But you had basically 2 games against Oldham in a week, and you missed the league game on Easter Monday, which you were particularly annoyed about because you played every game up until that point. I mean, you look at the stats for that season, every game in the league, I should say, obviously rested for a couple of the League Cup games as Fergie was rotating in the earlier rounds. Like you said about playing every game, it's one of those badges of honour for those players, wasn't it? Really, you want to show that you're durable, show that you can stand up to a challenge, and sort of complete the league season was like an achievement in itself.
Yeah, I was saving, to be perfectly honest, because it was my birthday as well. I had a lot of people come up from London because I had something on that day as well, and I was just so, I'm desperate to play. And then when the boss done what he done and left me out, I was fuming, absolutely fuming. I don't think I'd ever been that way before in that situation, because I was all geared up to play. He hadn't said a word to me the day before. I went in as normal into Old Trafford, arrived 3 hours before kickoff because we used to meet then and have something to eat in the grill room, in the ground. And then I just got in the dressing room, but he just said that, no great reason. And I was fuming that I missed it, that I missed that game. It was because we were getting, as you know, we were getting closer and closer to achieving something. So you just don't want to miss games. You want to be there. You want everything that goes with it after it. Especially
after losing the big game a couple of days before. Like you're in that mode to sort of put it right as well.
Yeah, it was just, it wasn't great. Yeah, that game, losing that game and then going into this game and then being left out, it does make you think a little bit negative about, you to blame, are you to blame, everything that's going with it. Had me, a little bit when my ankle wasn't right in certain ways. He said he was resting me. Was he using that as an excuse to say that I was that poor that he's, doing that? But, at the end of the day, it wasn't about that. There was a method in what he done. I played the next game, and so it went. But it was just that moment, just playing at Old Trafford at that moment. It was just, it was wall-to-wall people maybe more in there than what there maybe should have been. It was the bit that going in, everything that leads up on a match day at Old Trafford is something that the only people who can explain it are players. Of that
Yeah.
but it's not the same anymore as what it used to be. We used to drive in our own cars,
Yeah.
all coming at different, all arriving around about midday from prior to midday, I should say, and it was a different way, and every player felt that. There was all that, you'd be there to sign something, and you think, great, yeah, can you sign that, Paul? When all of a sudden Giggsy would turn up and say, sorry, Giggsy's come, I'm not interested, Paul, I want Giggsy. It was all that kind of stuff going on. Now they arrive on a team bus, people can't get near them anymore. So that has gone now, Wayne, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I think that's the worst it's been for me about being left out again, because I wasn't used to it. I was always knew I was always going to be playing Fulham, QPR. Come to United, started a regular first. Played in my first game, my first season, and that's the way it always been. And so it's hard to understand. If I was in today's game, I couldn't deal with it just being the way it is done today. I'd want to play in every single game.
Yeah, on your birthday as well. That's
Yeah.
Roman, the boss, showing no sentiment with that one. He did play in the next one though, and we were talking about it, I think, off air last week, and came off just before the final whistle really for Nicky, but played a part in the equaliser against Oldham. What a goal that was! And it was one of those only Mark could score, really, wasn't it? Like on the stretch, scoring like that. What was it like watching that sitting down as a player? Thinking like we're in the last minute, we've not really got a chance here. Oldham were defending really well. He was going to take a goal like that to get us into the replay.
Well, it was more about Wayne, about the fact I'd come off, and just the negative thoughts when you come off. I come off, and it was you feel bad because there's a reason why he's made the substitution.
Yeah.
You got your own reasons, he's got his, but my side of it is going to be different to his side of it, I'm sure, or I know. But when it did go in, even I jumped.
Yeah.
Couldn't, it was just one of those moments because you look at the negative side of it. Sparky doesn't score that goal, and we could have, on the verge of a double. But we lose out in the double, getting to the final because Oldham Athletic stopped us. It's something you wouldn't want to be talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the line, would you? Why United didn't win a double in 93, 94? Because trying my best not to be disrespectful, but the mighty Oldham Athletic stopped you doing it. It just, you just think you're thinking about, about that really. It's like me thinking about if we'd been beaten by Cameroon that time. That's the kind of thing. That's where it was. So for Sparky to go and do that, and like you said, only Mark Hughes can do that. There was Sparky. Was that in the first season when we played Liverpool at home, 2-0 down, and Sparky scores the equaliser? Is that right?
The first Premier League season. Yeah.
First Premier League season. Sparky scores the equaliser. So it's just one of those things that he does. He scores the most awkward goals, which no one else could do, to be perfectly honest. He had this incredible technique, Sparky, which I don't think people will ever see again.
Yeah.
Just the way he played.
His volume was out of this world.
Yeah, that someone of his stature and everything about him, Sparky was a bruiser, without a shadow of a doubt. But he had so much ability. It was incredible what he could do with football, or what he wanted to do. And if it didn't work out, he's one of them who'd want to go and do it again because he knew he could do it. And so many times you see the boss with Sparky, and the boss will get the ump with him because he's doing this and doing that, and then he'll pull out an incredible, like a chip or something. Can you remember the game, Wayne, when we played Charlton Athletic at home? Another game where I had to come off because Peter Schmeichel got sent off.
Yeah, that was early in the cup run.
Yeah. And Sparky ended up having to play central midfield.
Yeah.
And he was pinging balls about like Glenn Hoddle. And I mean, when I'm saying pinging balls out, they were like passing with progression, I call it. It wasn't just balls out just into space for someone to go, oh, he was incredible what he was doing. And he loved it, Sparky. And you just suddenly saw what a great all-round player he was, Mark Hughes. Wasn't just a centre forward who every centre half wanted to kick to death. And he wanted to kick them to death as well. He was an incredible footballer, and more importantly, he was an incredible goal scorer.
Yeah, he did when he went to Chelsea and then Southampton. He played a lot of his last games in midfield, didn't he? So, you're never gonna find him going missing on a football pitch. That was for sure. He said a great word there, awkward, because that's what he was like. He really was an awkward player, and scored a lot of awkward goals. But he also had the thing. What about Hughes? I know he's because of what he went on to manage City, and he had a bit of a rival with Fergie afterwards. But he also had a good respect with Fergie, and I think when he went to QPR after City, and Fergie still sent him a few players down. I think Fabio went down to Hughes on loan. So you had that kind of thing. A lot of people kind of turned against Mark Hughes. They think like Peter Schmeichel went to City and then Paul Ince went to Liverpool, and they look at them and say, "Oh, well, they sort of chose a different club." I still look at Hughes with tremendous respect, and sort of that feeling that I get from him was that he was, perhaps not in even a way that Cantona didn't have. Like, he had this sort of sense of occasion and timing, like the rescue acts. Like Cantona was like the main event, but Mark was like the rescue act. Whenever you needed something, he'd be there, like almost like destiny had sort of put him there. And no better occasion than the Oldham one.
I think Sparky's one of those players that you could guarantee, whenever it was a big game, you'd always put your money on Mark Hughes to perform.
Yeah.
That's what he was all about, and that's what the boss would have said about him. He always says to the boss, one of the words he always used to use, he always expected his big players to perform in big games. He said that's the reason why they're at Manchester United, and that's the reason why I brought them to Manchester United to play in big games, because United had big games.
Yeah. The replay. Sorry, the replay. You wiped the floor with Oldham. Got to the final. But the biggest thing about that, what I don't think a lot of people realise when they look back, because you can look back at it and the history records will tell you what happened and on what day. What would have happened if if you lost against Oldham, you would have gone to Leeds that Wednesday. You were talking about playing Liverpool after the cup final. You would have gone to Leeds on that Wednesday, and Cantona would have still been suspended, and you would have all been knackered from Sunday, a little bit annoyed that obviously lost in that way as well. So that game against Leeds was rescheduled to later in the season, and Hughes was unbelievable that night. That was one game. Kanchelskis and Giggs both scored, but we won 2-0, and Hughes played one of his best ever games. I think he set both of the goals up. He was that was one of those games where he said, like, he was like the beacon. And, like a lot of players would shrink under that, in that kind of atmosphere. He just sort of like reveled in it, didn't he? He was like, give me that occasion and give me the hostility. It makes me bigger. It's such a strange thing. I loved him. I loved Spock. He was brilliant. One of my favourites. When, how can he not be when he's scoring goals like that? It's an incredible thing. I guess then the last thing to do is, this is our pre-season warm-up. Stick our necks out, not for the title or predictions on what we're going to do, but see what we think would be a successful season for Ollie, as progression. Last season, I think we could both agree that it was progression. We got to second, we got to a cup final. Things seemed to be more settled as a club than they were. Well, certainly at the start of the season, it seemed very much in disarray. I remember after the Spurs game, I'm pretty sure I said it to you a couple of times, that I'm pretty certain it was a matter of when and not if Ollie was going to get the sack. I didn't think he was going to see the season out, but he did, and he's going to be in the hot seat for this season because he's got the new contracts and everything like that. As far as progression for you, what do you think if you look at the end of the season next May, what do you think is going to represent a good season for Ollie and United, for that matter?
A good season for Ollie is to win a trophy. He has to. I think there's too many people now who are throwing it out now. They're judging him on winning a trophy. They're not about being a good manager and managing Manchester United. It's about winning a trophy. That's how everything works in today. You're rubbish if you don't win a trophy. Even though there's so few trophies to win in football, people expect you to go and win one. They won't take in how difficult it is to go and do that when there's other things in between, because there's other things to play for. They just take it, win a trophy. So until he does that, then it will shut down quite a few of them. But for me, guaranteed, yes, he has to finish. He has to be in the Champions League again. But it's about not just waiting to the final 6 games. It's that cementing it a lot better and showing more consistency. And when the big games come up, like they did to Sheffield United at home last season, and when the Everton, and when you get yourself a 2-goal advantage, you don't give those games away, especially to Everton. You don't do that at home. You can't do it. And they're the ones that matter. Making the right substitutions at the right times, which everyone will always talk about, but you just look at things. And I personally think to finish second in the league is not a bad thing. To finish no lower than second, I think I would question that, to be perfectly honest. I think they should finish no lower than second in the Premier League. Don't ask me who's going to finish top, but I'm just looking at something. You set a stall out, and I think to finish no second. I think they finished second last season, maybe more by default by the way the league was. But I think this is a season where you have to really judge Ollie and what he does now, because everyone's there to say something to him, and a lot of players now. Be interested to judge certain players, the ones who've done well. See how they handle this. How does Fernandes handle this challenge now of playing in front of the crowd when he knows that he's been adored from TV sets? Now they're going to be there. Are they actually going to love him and get him in that lot, try and put him there with Eric again, because they're seeing him live and seeing he can perform when it really matters in front of them and in the big games.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I think with Chelsea strengthening and Liverpool, obviously, going to have players back and strengthening their team as well. That finishing second, whilst not looking like it's progression, I think like accumulating more points, like you said, not throwing the silly points away, and sort of whether or not it represents a title race, depending on what City do, is one thing. But I think staying in front of Chelsea and Liverpool will be a big thing, because obviously they had mixed seasons last time around. With Chelsea won the Champions League, they're on high, and we could say that we're in the mix of that club. So to finish second would be a thing. But yeah, I'm with you, winning a trophy, and with it being United, probably an FA Cup rather than a League Cup, because I can imagine that if you get to the end of the season and Ollie's won a League Cup and finished third, people will say that we've gone backwards. But we'll see. Everything's always moving. To finish on this week, Ben Allen did just make a comment. Want to make sure that we get to that. Do you think Eric and Mark are giving the respect they're due as a combination, albeit unorthodox? This is a really good question, really, because I would agree with that, and I think everyone knows. Like I wrote a book on Cantona. He's one of my favorite. He was my favorite ever player, but obviously he needed you lot around him. He needed that stage to make him better as well. And Mark was obviously the perfect partner for him, more than anyone at United. After I know he played with Scholes and he played with Andy Cole, but I think he never played as well as the vibrancy and the intellect between him and Mark was just perfect for each other, wasn't it? And to be fair, Cantona improved Hughes as well, because for that 2 years where they were playing together regularly, 92 to 94, Hughes probably played the best that he ever played. You never saw a 30-year-old player improve before, but they certainly did, didn't they? They were a great combination.
Yeah, I'm sure we mentioned this last time. I brought it up about those two playing together, but everything you said there is absolutely correct, because he was Spark. They both were good foils for each other. Sparky was the strength and the focal point. Eric come in, and Eric enjoyed the fact that he had someone to play off, somebody who could take things away from him, and Sparky's movement made a difference for Eric, and Eric found he could run around and make those runs around Sparky. And I think it was just mutual respect in the end. And even when we was out, socially in certain ways, those two had a way of like having conversations. With Eric, it was Eric really, he understood. Delivering was a bit difficult in certain ways, especially when you're a mixture of people from all over the country at that given time. Well, you had Big Pete and you had Andre, that side of it, but players from all over the country. So it was difficult for Eric to understand. But the one thing is, they got on that pitch together and they respected each other. So there was no one worried about hogging the limelight or anything like that. They both helped each other. Both of them were great team players, and everyone knows with Sparky's, you knock Sparky a bad ball, he would try and at least make it into an average ball, whatever. But he would let you know it, and he would let you know that. While Eric would give you the eyes if you knocked him a bad ball, but if Eric knocked you a bad ball, he couldn't apologise quick enough, and you're virtually saying to Eric, "Just get on with the game, but please don't try and make a tackle, don't try and win it back." But I was fortunate enough to play with those two, and in what Ben's saying, were they given enough credit? No, they wasn't. They don't really get talked about. There should be something out. There should be montages of the things that those two done together. Not always leading to goals, but it's just the movement, the way, Sparky, you could use Sparky, and Sparky would play in triangles and play 1-2s around, and there should be something like that showing what those two done together with their movement in that bit. Well, Sparky had been missing that in the previous season. He thoroughly enjoyed that season, and then the season after playing with Eric, you could see it. And as you said, Sparky improved. He improved because he had someone closer to him who improvised as well as Sparky wanted to. He enjoyed that. And Eric, that's what Eric. One of the things Eric brought. He brought improvisation into things where before people goes, he's made a silly run, but when you got somebody who somehow managed to bend his foot in all different directions to put a ball into an area where other people couldn't, then it wasn't just improvisation. Then it was something maybe sometimes more than that. But where before someone make a run, it was called a bad run because of the fact that the person couldn't deliver, and that's not about that person. Eric was a maverick, wasn't he? Really, in the way he was. And it's just, it's as simple as that. And there's only so few of them in certain times in football. And at that time, Eric was that player. And someone was talking about me the other day, and I turned around and you talk this, and they mentioned players. I said, well, I mentioned about Eric, and I said, you take Eric in his homeland, he's nowhere near the player that he was in England. He's adored in England, even for fans who are not Manchester United. They just love watching Eric play. People turned up at games because they wanted to see Eric play at their local grounds. In France, people didn't really, he was a problem, so like that. While in England, people still talk about him now. You sit there, we see him in adverts, and most people see him in adverts, they relate to why he's doing that advert.
Yeah, do you know, while we're talking about Eric, it's a good thing Paul and I are both on. Sky released a podcast last week, Sky Sports, and I'll drop it in the description actually, that Paul and I were both on last year, talk about Eric. Is it actually really good production, what they did with that. So yeah, check out, not just Paul and I, there's different people. Hayley McQueen's on there, Julian Lawrence, French journalist as well, Barney from Red News. I think Andy Cole is also on the podcast as well, so some few people let's talk about that. Yeah, you mentioned it perfectly. That's the thing with those kind of partnerships in those days. They used to say little and large were the way to go. You'd have Chapman at Leeds before with Cannonau, and he just wasn't, the fit wasn't right when you watched them play because Cannonau wouldn't run onto balls, and Chapman would flick them on. And I think Chapman was learning that you have to actually bring him into the play. But that's what made Hughes so, because he was so different. That's probably why, they were so different in terms of the kind of, you'd find a number 10 who would run onto a ball, but Cannonau wasn't that player. And that's why they were so good for that team. But yeah, and great indulgence for me as always to go back into that. And I'll probably talk about it next week as well. I make no apologies for doing so. I'm allowed to have some nostalgic indulgence from time to time. That is it for this week, guys. We will be back next week to talk about the Leeds game. Hopefully, and talk about a win. Remember, TOTD10 for a 10% discount with classic football shirts. Please leave us a nice review or rating on Apple Podcasts if you're listening on the audio version. And please like and subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. We will be back next week. Stay safe, stay well, and thanks for listening and watching.